Hey everyone, welcome back to Y'all Heard the podcast. I am Ella Burke. For anyone that may be listening that doesn't know me yet, hopefully there are a few of those. Analytics have been looking good. Been a few more pin drops on the map and all the things, and more downloads and listens, which I'm pretty pumped about. We're getting across those different various platforms that all this stuff goes out to. Obviously, today you just have me. We're doing a solo episode. Otherwise, you would be hearing someone else through your car speaker or your headphones, or seeing someone else different on your screen, but you're just stuck with me today. So, I'll be honest. I'm not really in the headspace right now to be filming. It's been a long week and it's only Wednesday. Just a lot of things to do, both professionally and personally, and it's like all good in the hood, though. I think it ties into the topic of conversation today, actually. I may be tired and I may not be in the headspace for it, but I'm still showing up because this is something that I have committed to, and this is something that I care about, and you guys are something I care about. So, yeah, I think today's topic of conversation is going to be really relative to a lot of people as far as just experiencing it yourself, or maybe a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call for me as well. I'm guilty of what we're talking about at times, for sure. And yeah, today we are going to call out the overcorrection culture about boundaries and self-care. And we're going to talk about how a lot of times we expect other people to show up for us, and we want and desire community, but we are not willing to show up for other people and create community for them, even when it may be a little bit more difficult for you. And so, yeah, I can't lie. This was definitely not just an idea that I had an epiphany of. It was a video that had came across my For You page the other day, and a girl, a creator that was a girl or creator, I don't know how many followers she had. I just looked at that one video, but she was talking about the same thing that we're talking about today, as far as, we need to get back to a point where, or a healthy balance where, like, yeah, it's important to have boundaries and it's important to rest, and sometimes it's okay to throw in the towel one or two times and just say, hey, I need some time for myself. I'm not feeling up to it as far as plans go. But also, we kind of need to get back to a point where, even if you are tired, or even if, there may be something shitty going on in your personal life, obviously depends upon how shitty. There's always a gray area. You still show up for people, and I'm guilty of it. There have been times, whether it be family or friends, where, yeah, I'm exhausted out of my mind and I'm burnt out, but regardless, those people are important enough to me to where I should be showing up, and sometimes I haven't. And so I think it's just a good conversation to be having, and so that's what we are going to, me, and then I guess you listen. I'd love to be able to just have people pop in with remarks at times, but that's what I'm going to sit here and yap and bitch about today. So, good stuff. First of all, I want to recognize how, one, we've decided to put everything on a damn t-shirt or a card or a needlepoint pillow, as far as, like hashtag I love my mental illness, and just weird shit like that I honestly think shouldn't be worn on a t-shirt or put on anything. This is one of those things. It's like I saw a minted car at Target that's like, plans with you are the only ones I don't want to cancel. And then a needlepoint pillow that's like, my favorite kind of plans are canceled ones. And I'm like, like it gets to a point where I'm just like, it's a little much. And I think a needlepoint pillow and a card and a t-shirt and whatever other merch people decide to randomly come up with to just pay shit on, I think it's gone a little too far. And this is just a peak example of how we've normalized this behavior of not showing up for people in our own circles, but yet expecting the thing that we're not doing out of those people. And so, yeah, I think, of course, you're allowed to be tired and you're allowed to be exhausted. And sometimes you may need just some time to rejuvenate the mental. Totally cool. But are you using that as a default excuse to disengage and tend to your social battery that may be non-existent that day in the first place? I think we've got to pivot and we've got to change up the mindset on that and say, hey, even though I may not be in the headspace for this, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do it because it's important and these people are important, whatever it is. And so, yeah, everybody says that they want a deep friendship and strong communities, but then we decide that we want to ghost for people's birthdays and cancel things over minor inconveniences. And again, there's a gray area. Like, obviously, if you've had a death in the family or like a death of somebody that you know, or, it's just been a day simply curated by Satan himself. I mean, yeah, all right. There's gray area and there are exceptions to every rule. Okay, I get that. I recognize that. But, and if you're bending over in that direction to be able to be like, well, that's not, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're not getting the point in general. But no, I just think it's ironic. It's ironic. I mean, there are plenty of times where, I've felt really low in a season of loneliness. I think there have been a lot of times where I might have been in a season or like a moment of loneliness and just, pity me, feeling so sorry for myself, whatever. No one wants to show up for me, blah. But then that affects how I show up for other people. And sure, I relate to the whole thing of, you constantly pouring into other people's cups that you have nothing to fill your own with. I get that. I'm guilty of it. I've felt that intensely. But I think we've gone so far in the opposite direction to where we're not doing hard things and excusing ourselves with things that just aren't necessarily valid anymore. And so, yeah, if your entire support system has to tiptoe around your needs, is it support or is it avoidance? It's avoidance, plain and simple. I think boundaries versus barriers is another good point to talk about. I think setting boundaries isn't the same as emotionally tapping out every time things get messy or inconvenient. A boundary is I can't talk about this right now, but I do care, or I may not be able to show up right now, but let's reschedule. I think that follow-up is super important. So you're solely creating that habit of like not showing up and simply becoming absent. And yeah, being in a community sometimes means showing up when it's not easy. And this conversation doesn't even necessarily have to be relative to, community. It also could be, for instance, this, like I could someday in the future, we're not there yet to where I've been doing this for long enough and nothing's happening monetarily or viewership wise where I have an excuse to bitch yet. We're still in the early phases, but it's like, this is just a hypothetical, but in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, I could be sitting bitching about how, oh my gosh, I put all this work into this and I'm not getting anything out of it, but I might have not recorded for the past 2 weeks. It's like, okay, well, consequences of your own actions, like pity me. No, you show up even when you're not in the mood or when it's hard. Like, I think that's important to do. It's an important thing to do. I don't think that friendships, relationships, work, relationships, both being romantic, family, friend, like whatever, the whole shebang, work, passion projects. I mean, whatever it is you may be into, it's not always convenient, but you do it. Would you want somebody to skip your birthday dinner simply because they needed to recharge? I mean, it gets to a point, like I said, there may be dire circumstances where like something just life altering happened to you and you may not be able to show up in that moment. Okay, yeah, your friends are going to understand that, of course. But also, if you're just like, I'm still laying in bed and I should have been getting ready an hour ago and now I just kind of don't want to go anymore, get the hell up. Go paint your face on or put your clothes on or whatever it is that you need to do and get out the damn door and go show up for your people. I think it's important. Not every plan is a drain on your energy, and sometimes it ends up being the thing that lifts you up. I can't tell you the amount of times where I've been like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. Like, this sounds like actually the world's worst thing that I could possibly be engaging in right now. And then I actually go and I do the thing and I'm like, you know what? I'm glad I did this. It's, there are plenty of situations like that in life, whether it be going out with your friends or, going to like a networking cocktail hour, or, like we went to a convention for work a couple weeks ago. And I mean, there were parts where I was like, all right, I don't know how much I want to be involved in this, but we would go to those things and show up and actually created very good results out of them. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm glad I came. But, we're all low capacity until the right person invites you out to do something that is just a blast. And I don't necessarily think, this is another thing. I think we've also normalized talking and bragging and boasting about how busy we are. Not talking about it. It's okay to be busy, of course. But like when it becomes your whole personality trait, which, let me just say, this isn't pot calling kettle black, all right? I've been that person. Like D1 campus climber right here, like, oh my gosh, I'm so burnt out. I'm so tired. I have so much to do. But it's like, who's the one that signed me up to do all that shit? This guy right here. And so, follow through with your commitments, figure out how to maintain a balance, and just roll with it. Roll with it. Everybody wants to feel seen, known, heard, understood, loved. But the important question is, like, are you willing to take the steps and do the work to do the showing up part that's necessary in order to get the result that you're wanting? Are you willing to do it? And hopefully that answer is yes, because I think everybody would do a lot better and be a lot less lonely, and our, statistics as far as depression, mental illness, mental health, whatever. All of those things are very important. That's me saying whatever. Let me just preface. And I overthink on this thing. I have to over-explain myself. Sometimes the delivery is just poor. But no, all of those things are super important. But I think all of those numbers that are at an all-time high right now, especially in our country, would decrease if we started, instead of making excuses and complaining and bitching all the time, if we just started taking the steps and doing the things that we may have not done before, or the things that may be hard or we don't want to do, in order to kind of sink those down a little bit. There's so much good in the world, and there's so many possibilities every single day when you wake up. I mean, one of my really good friends growing up just posted the other day something on Facebook where it was like, how lucky am I to not know what's next because my options are so endless, and the possibilities are so endless. Shout out Kaylee. That was a great repost on the Facebook. No, I mean, like, that, it's so true. There's so many possibilities and so many things that could happen. And, whether that be finding your best friend, finding a partner, feeling like you're a part of something, feeling like you're a part of a group, you never know unless you try, and you kind of got to stick yourself in situations that you've never been in before and do things that you don't want to do. I think it's super important. You can't build connection by vibes alone. You build it by showing up. And that includes even when you want to stay home. I get it. I've turned into a homebody, I feel like, as I've gotten older. And yeah, like, my couch is one of my favorite places to be. Love to turn on Scandal, New Girl, Law and Order, The Office, like whatever, any TV show that I can just sit and really get into. Just started watching The Hunting Wives, I think is what it's called on Netflix. It's pretty crazy. But no, that my couch is my favorite place to be half the time. But it's also like, I got to put in effort to make sure that I'm maintaining these friendships and connections. And this includes even living with my boyfriend. I mean, like, we cohabitate. So it's like, I think sometimes I've realized I've gotten a little too comfortable just simply existing and being on my phone around him. And sometimes I feel disconnected. And then I'm like, well, am I doing the work to feel connected? But yeah, I think you've got to be willing to do stuff in order to better your connections with people, develop connections with people, maintain them. And then you have a better appreciation for what you're actually blessed with in your life. I think another good point to hit on is when boundaries become one-sided. I think it's really important to ask yourself, are you the only one setting boundaries, and are you also respecting other people's? I think a lot of times, while I love therapy, I think it's important. I think everybody should do it at least once in their lives to see if it's a thing for them. I think it's really important just in general to have a a non-biased, unbiased presence in your life to kind of shoot the shit with you and tell you where you're screwing up. But I think a lot of people have confused that with finding a therapist that just simply enables their bad behavior. And I think we've gone a little too far with the therapy talk and loving ourselves. I mean, of course, it's important to love yourself, but it's also like you shouldn't be the focal point as far as everyone else's world revolving around you and you calling the shots all the time. And again, there are plenty of these points I'm hitting on that I'm guilty of. There are plenty of arguments that I've had with my boyfriend where I am the one that wants to structure the conversation, and have the conversation, but I'm not willing to hear him out in the same way that I'm expecting him to hear me out. And so it's like, it's just things like that. You've got to ask yourself, are you the only one setting boundaries, or are you also respecting other people's? It's important. Boundaries don't mean disappearing until you need something again. You can't squeeze people like lemons and just throw them away. I think steamrolling over people in that fashion gets you nowhere fast in life. And sure, it may get you to the top, but underneath you are a bunch of people that hate your effing guts. So got to find the healthy balance. But yeah, if all your boundaries are about protecting you and none of them include showing up for others, you're not setting boundaries, you're avoiding reciprocation. It's important. I think another good point, an important point to hit on, is how digital connection does not replace actual presence. Me texting, of course, distance is something that's important to consider. But again, like I said, there's gray area in every single part of this episode and conversation that we're having today. But sending your best friend a text that's like, happy birthday, I hope you have the best day ever, that's in the same town as you, and not showing up to their birthday dinner, or they have a big promotion at work and they're having a dinner for it, or an event that they're involved in that they want you to attend, and just like, it's not the same texting them as it is you actually physically showing up and being there. My favorite example of this, I love getting on that side of TikTok where it's like kids at their school performances or church performances, and the shift in confidence before seeing their mom and dad versus or grandparent, whoever, guardian, before seeing them versus after seeing them. And you just see their face light up. They instantly feel more confident and more self-assured as far as what they're doing. And I think that extends beyond childhood. I think it extends into adulthood. We're a lot more confident in what we're doing. And I think there's a lot less imposter syndrome when we have people that we love and care about show up for us. And I think that's super important. And yeah, just people remember who showed up. They do. And not necessarily who commented under a post that you made 3 years ago. People remember about who physically showed up and who was physically there. And I think, yeah, obviously it's important to support people on their social posts. And like I said, distance has a really big thing on that, but just making sure that you're being personal and that you're investing in a deeper way than something as simple as an AI generated comment that Facebook gives you and just sending it out there into the metaverse. So yeah, I think another thing that's a good point to touch on is how not everything that drains you is bad for you. I think some social things are exhausting. I think everybody has various different kinds or levels of social battery life. And I'm one, and not to be like I'm an Enneagram 7, but yeah, like I'm a personality test junkie a wee bit. But no, I'm a big enthusiast. I love people. People fill my cup. And I truly am more of a lively person and more of myself. I feel like when I am surrounded by people, and especially people that I love and enjoy spending time with, it's just a part of who I am. I understand that not everybody is that way, but I know that a foundational part of our human existence is connection and community. And if you're on that opposite end of the spectrum as I am, that's totally fine. But we can't crave that community and that connection if we're not being willing to do hard things and show up when it matters and reciprocate or set the standard as far as what you would want in a connection or, in your support system. I think it's important. Showing up for people naturally requires energy. And that's really all there is to it. It naturally requires energy, but the people that show up for you and that have constantly encouraged you and supported you are worthy of using that energy on. Truly. I think it's so important. And yeah, like obviously if you have a group of friends or a person that you feel like you're constantly showing up for and they're not doing the same for you, obviously that's a problem. I'm not saying sit there and scratch someone else's back while they don't even want to pay any mind to yours. It's not what I'm saying at all. But it's like sometimes we've got to do a little work in order to get the results that we so badly desire. And yeah, no, but I'm not saying be a doormat and, constantly exhaust yourself on people who don't pay you any mind or care or show that they care. But yeah, I think we've gotten so good at avoiding discomfort and we forget that love takes work. I think, like I've said before, the best way to love someone is to have hard conversations. And I also think that includes showing up even when you don't necessarily want to. I think that the 100% rule is applicable to a lot of things in life. If, there are going to be some days where the other person, whether it be, family member, friend, partner, whatever, they're willing to put up like, 50 and you're willing to put up 50 as well. There are some days where you're only able to put up 20% and somebody else has to carry the other 80. But it's a give and take. And so, it's important to maintain that balance and yeah, just realize that it takes work and sometimes we have to show up a little bit more than what normally you require yourself to do. I think there's an overuse of low capacity. It's another point I want to talk about. Low capacity is real, but not when it becomes a lifestyle. If you always don't have the energy to engage in social situations or engage in like the relationships that matter to you, you need to ask yourself why, figure it out. Cause it's probably exhausting to be around. I know I can be exhausting to be around as far as that goes. Like there've been plenty of times where, with my parents, I'm like expecting them to show up for me in some way, but I'm not, doing the things that are expected of me that would probably make them a little bit happier to show up for me in the way that I'd like them to. And so, yeah, nobody's asking you to perform. People just want you to show up and be there. And yeah, another point is community is not only built during your high energy months. It's just not. Obviously, every season's different. Every month is different. There are busier times. There's more downtime for people in certain months. And there's times where life happens, shit happens, and hits you like a truck. You're exhausted emotionally. And, tragic things happen too. I think that's important. But I also think it's one of those things too. And this is another thing that's relative to the conversation. I think a lot of people want to show up when people are at their lowest, but they're not willing to show up when people are winning. And I think that kind of goes to show a lot as far as like who someone is as a person and also like the value of a relationship or a friendship. And I think it's important to be consistent, whether a person is having a big win or suffering a really big loss. And so it's, again, I've said balance probably a million times in this episode, but it's all just a balance. And you've got to figure out what works for you, but also we've just got to quit normalizing this whole not showing up for people thing just because we don't feel like it. If that's your excuse, find a better one. Or just go show up and do the thing. And I'm sure you'll be a lot happier that you did it. Today was a little bit shorter of an episode than I probably would have liked it to be. But again, like I said, I'm not exactly in the headspace today to be like, I'm loving filming right now. I'm zonked AF, but I'm showing up because this is important to me. I want to see results, and putting out stuff consistently is something that I strive to do. So yeah, It's been real. It's been fun, as always. Unironically, like, subscribe, share, comment. Please, I'm asking if you're listening to this, like, do one, if not all of those, show up for me in a way. Just a wee bit. Haha, just kidding. But no, that seriously would be greatly appreciated because SEO, search engine optimization, as marketing, has already improved as far as like looking it up on Google and looking it up on streaming platforms. Like when I look up y'all, it's like one of the first things that comes up, but also that probably has to do with the fact that I've looked it up so many times. But no, I think it is better. So anything that you can do to help out as far as that stuff goes and pushing it out there, let me know. But yeah, I need to go make some clips of this solo episode. I need to make some clips of this episode and some of the past episodes that we've had as far as guests, which hopefully you guys enjoyed. Jerry and Jake, maybe keeping it consistent with the next one as far as Jay's go. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Jasmine, you should come on at some point. But yeah, we'll have a guest on next week. Stay tuned. And as always, have a happy Thursday. And I'll see y'all on next week's episode of Y'all Heard. Bye.